Corinthians 13 is, of course, the love chapter. And we're not, you'll hear the context of this is different than a wedding. In the practical working out of Christian theology, there's been a tension between what we call works and grace. It is felt mostly, I think, at this season of Lent. And some of you have thought about this, others have not. Let me define my terms. Works, in the theological sense, is anything you do to try to earn favor or your salvation with God. It shows up in culture and conversation all the time. It's in the water, especially in American culture. You might hear after someone does something good or generous, almost in jest, they say, I just earned a jewel in my crown, or that should get me a little closer to heaven, or the infinite number of St. Peter's jokes meeting us at the pearly gates and ask, why should I let you in, right? I mean, it's just in the culture. It's baked in. It's hard to truly believe that our eternal salvation is only through grace, is why that is in the water of our culture. It's hard to believe that. Only Christ's death and resurrection gives us a relationship with God and not our hard-earned work. But the Bible is clear. We are saved and restored not because of your good works, but because of His. Lent is best known for repentance and often thought to be shown in the things that we do, or we participate in Lent by the things that we do or don't do. We receive an ash on our foreheads, and we are asked, what are you going to give up for Lent? Which is a fine question, okay? I'm pondering that myself. But every spiritual act like this, especially in a time where you're more concentrated on that in Lent, can be dangerously close to works of the flesh if done to earn God's blessing or favor. And this is the reason I don't find kind of those jokes very funny, is because it undercuts and it shores up this cultural misperception of what the heart of the gospel is, and it reinforces why most people misunderstand Christ's salvation altogether. It is by grace you are saved through faith, not of yourselves, but by work, not of works that anyone should boast. So what's grace? Grace is unmerited favor from God. It is what makes the gospel so free and sound too good to be true. If it sounds too good to be true, it's because it is too good, but it is true. We don't do anything to earn favor with God. It's only God's grace that can give us that relationship with Him. It's completely free. Christ died out of love for you. And when this atoning sacrifice sinks in the freely given grace of God, we are astounded by His love. And we receive His forgiveness, period. It's so free that after 5 chapters in Romans, Paul has to start in Romans 6 by saying, what shall we say then? Shall we keep on sinning that grace may increase? And he says, by no means. And so he sees, he knows, if you understand the gospel, the question is, well, then I can do whatever I want to do. Well, you're right in that you still can and be saved, but someone who doesn't truly understand the gospel if they're asking that question. And some of you may already feel uncomfortable and want to say, but of course we got to do something. I mean, why am I here, Todd? Well, good question. Good question. We need to ask ourselves, why are we here? We might say to ourselves, I have to produce fruit. I have to have faith and believe. I have to go to church. I have to read my Bible. I have to give something up for Lent. I have to. And before you know it, we're down the rabbit trail of works, and we forget the grace that Jesus gives to us. And this is often because of the simple assumption in our culture that nothing's free. I mean, it's how many have ever heard remember your father saying, no free lunch? Well, that's a cultural statement, not a spiritual one. And if you're a self-made, successful person, and you believe in kind of the individual, which is kind of the American dream, it becomes even more difficult to understand grace. Remember, salvation is by grace alone, not by works, that anyone should boast. The sooner you can believe and understand that premise, the sooner you will be loosed from bondage of religiosity and spiritual, and maybe even spiritual pride. But yet, there is a connection between grace and works. That's why in Romans 6, Paul says, by no means. No, you don't get to do whatever you want to. There is a connection, and this connection mainly is found in 1 Corinthians 13. Works, what we do and what we say for God, are the fruit of love for Him. 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter. The works that we do are a fruit of the love that we have. And when we look at and we plan for Lent, or we describe to people what we do as a Christian, if it's not led with our love for Him, it is worth nothing, 1 Corinthians 13 says. It's not obligation, it's not earning, it's out of love. We love because God first loved us, and God first loved us because He created us in His image. We are His children. We have sinned, of course, we're fallen, but we are restored by His graciousness and His kindness. In our online Lenten study that you'll see if you take the class, two of my spiritual heroes kind of start off the curriculum with two quotes, and I love both of these quotes. One is D.A. Carson, and he says, "People do not drift towards holiness." So there is an act of willfulness, of some we have to do. It's not like we're just like drifting towards holiness and godliness. And the other quote is Dallas Willard, who has written some of the most influential works on spiritual formation in the last maybe 30, 40 years, the late Dallas Willard. He said, "Grace is not opposed to effort, it is opposed to earning." That's a big difference, and I want you to hear that difference. Grace is not opposed to you making efforts towards getting to know who Christ is better out of your love for Him. It's opposed to trying to earn Christ's love through those efforts. So let's look at our epistle reading, which is fine to read at a wedding, and probably was read at every wedding I've done, and all those weddings downstairs on the bulletin. It applies to marriage wholeheartedly. Love is patient and kind, and all the things that are in 1 Corinthians 13, 7 and 8. But in 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 7, this part, the beginning, we read that it is embedded in what we do, that we have to love. In fact, the whole chapter of 1 Corinthians 13 is embedded in a greater context of 1 Corinthians 12 and 14, which are the two of the greatest chapters in the Bible on our spiritual gifts. What are your spiritual gifts? We talked about them a few weeks ago, like whether it's prophecy or giving or service, all those things. That in the midst of these two chapters on spiritual gifts is the love chapter. The fact that the love chapter is here tells us something very important. It tells us that no matter how much you do, no matter how gifted you are, if it's not done out of love for God and others, it is meaningless. This includes the things that we're about to start for Lent. Our culture doesn't tend to agree with this. Like we already said, we're too often, we as Christians will go the route of expediency. The ends justifies the means, as long as our agenda is achieved. Whether love is involved is secondary, and this just should not be the Christian life. Now, to kind of put together the work with the love, we have this saying that there is a very long distance from the head to the heart. It's the furthest 18 inches in the world. And I would tend to agree with that, because oftentimes what we think we don't believe, or what we think in our head in the spiritual terms, we don't live out because of our heart, because of our love. There's also another distance that's difficult to bridge, and that is from our hand to our heart. That the distance of your arm, if your hand is what you do and your heart is what you love, that distance is sometimes we have to bring those things together. Or else 1 Corinthians 13 says it's worth nothing. So 1 Corinthians addresses both of these things. First, the head stuff. If I speak with tongues of men and of angels, if I'm a great orator, but have not love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, but have not love, I'm nothing. So having a good understanding of the mysteries of the Christian doctrine, having an encyclopedic knowledge of the Bible, even to apply that knowledge and to real life prophetically, which is a gift, it is nothing if it's not graciously applied in love. And then the hand stuff is also found in 1 Corinthians 13. If I have faith so as to remove mountains but not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, I'm generous. If I deliver my body to be burned, I sacrifice for others. But I don't have love, I gain nothing. You see, all we do must come from love. We're not even being honest as believers. We're hypocritical. 1 John says that if you say you love God but hate your neighbor, you're a liar and the truth is not in you. So as we embark on this Lenten journey, begin to ask God to bridge this gap. Bridge the gap between your head and your heart. Bridge the gap between your hands and your heart. That bridge is the cross. And that is why we come to the communion table. That is why we come to the time of Lent to reflect on the sacrifice that Christ made. Because it is that love that compels us to love him back. We love because he first loved us. If we can contemplate a little more of his love for us this Lenten season, we will begin to accept this free grace even more, even more. It's an ebb and flow sometimes. We catch it and then we forget it because of pride or because we feel like we get caught up in the culture of doing. But we won't be content with not being responsive to his love. We will give effort, right? We will give our life. We will give our resources. We will give time. And we will maybe give up TV so you can spend more time with this God that loves you. Maybe you will give up food so that you are reminded, even through the hunger pains, of your desire to pursue the God who loves you first. May that be true during this Lenten season. May it always be true of all that we do, think, and say for him. Amen.